All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Sakamoto Days. Don't worry, this will not be as long as my run of One Piece today, but I am looking forward to this chapter in particular because of two characters who happen to be in it. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Yo, peoples! Qushu92 here. Welcome back to Sakamoto Days. In the last chapter, we continued our fight with Nagumo versus Oki. Oki bringing up his reasons for why he decided to side with X, and that he loves the art of killing, like the way that Osaragi kills, the way that Shishiba kills, the way that any of the top people in the order kill. He absolutely finds it sublime, and therefore doesn't want that whole concept of pitch perfect killing to go out of style because he prefers that type of assassination and those types of assassins. And Nagumo is just steadily fighting him. And while they're fighting all over the city, they wind up crashing straight into a casino. So let's see what happens on day 247 on me. And the ship that they were on is inside the casino. And then it cuts to a poker table. And Nagumo and Oki are basically fighting each other all over the casino. And when Oki goes in to try and cut the entire table in half, Nagumo jumps out of the way, catches a card, and throws it with such speed that it winds up cutting Oki directly in his shoulder. And then when Oki goes in for another hit, these are all just wordless panels, so I'm probably just going to breeze through this kind of quick, unless they start speaking. Nagumo changes his weapon and catches Oki's weapon before it can do any damage, and then immediately jumps away and flips away, and then starts to move in between the crowd all silently. And Nagumo starts to change his appearance. And now Oki's just standing there with a crowd of people who are just around him, with him thinking, a disguise. His speed is impressive. And then it shows a person right behind Oki preparing to stab him in the neck. And it looks like it's Nagumo disguising himself. And then Oki defends himself immediately. It's always the same crap with you. You rely on instinct and refuse to get your hands dirty. Ever since your classmate Sakamoto quit the JAA, you haven't been fighting sincerely. It's got nothing to do with him. Well, then you're squandering your talent. What a shame. And Oki is steadily gripping onto his staff as his blade is up against Nagumo's weapon, he's keeping it from stabbing him. If you don't hone your skills, they'll rot away. And then, in that instance, Oki starts spinning his spear with such speed that when Nagumo dodges out of the way, he causes an entire wall to collapse from the force. Like his spear is spinning at high speeds, and it looks like it snaps his weapon in half too. He spins his spear, it snaps Nagumo's weapon in half and destroys the entire wall behind him with extreme force. He used rotation to amplify his force. I feel bad busting your favorite weapon, but you can't show any respect for the battle. Then if you can't show any respect for the battle, then anything goes. And then he goes in to try and stab Nagumo again. And Nagumo once again blocks. And he winds up breaking yet another one of Nagumo. Now, mind you, he doesn't break the entire weapon. He just breaks one of the weapons inside of his tool. And Nagumo brings up like a scythe, and that gets snapped in half. There goes the second one. Dude, I just fixed those. And then Nagumo has like a ripcord come out. Yeah, has a ripcord come out, and he pulls it, and then the entire area just fills with smoke. And then it shows Nagumo in the smoke, making his way towards Oki, preparing to cut his head off, and Oki is standing there, and it's like basically the invisible blade he used against Gaku. Oh, an invisible blade, huh? An invisible blade. Huh. And this surprises Nagumo because Oki blocked it. It won't be a problem. I can counter just by watching your hands. And then Nagumo gets slashed across the chest instantly. He gets slashed across the chest, his invisible blade gets snapped in half, and half his jacket is off his shoulders. And Nagumo's weapon just goes flying behind him, like the whole thing. Darn it. Your weapons have been destroyed. You're out of tricks. It's over, Nagumo. Wait. And then it cuts to Nagumo thinking, and he thinks of Sakamoto. At a time like this, why am I... That's all you've got? Huh. And this is Sakamoto saying this to him in his mind. That's all you've got? Huh. And then, all of a sudden, Nagumo breaks out of his stupor and blocks Oki's weapon with his arm. Mind you, Oki slices into his arm, but he doesn't cut the hand off. Huh? I'm not done. There's no point in struggling, Nagumo. And then Nagumo stands there. And then he brings his hand around. Son of a... He still has a weapon? And then it shows Nagumo taking... It shows Nagumo taking his hand, his right hand, because he used his left hand like he was about to attack, but then he takes his right hand and jabs straight through. It looks like he's jabbing straight through the neck of Oki. He fainted with his left hand. And while it shows Oki bleeding from the neck, glasses have fallen off. These glasses have not gone anywhere this whole fight. The glasses of Oki have fallen off. And it almost looks like he managed to land a hit on Nagumo as well, because there's blood coming out of Nagumo's shoulder. But Nagumo basically just gouged straight into Oki's throat. And then it also shows that Oki has a blade sticking in his chest now. And he's pinned to the wall. Oh. Oki got punched in the throat. Yeah, he got punched in the throat. And the force of it caused Oki to get shoved into where the invisible blade was lodged into the wall, causing Oki to get impaled on it. Because it's sticking straight through his body. I thought an extra sword was jabbed through his chest, but no, he got literally punched into it and impaled through the body. That broken invisible blade lodged in the wall. And that punch, all of it was calculated. Sometimes you gotta bluff to survive in this world. I didn't have any tricks left up my sleeve. And it shows Nagumo bleeding from the hand. And his hands are bloody. Well, what do you know? I guess you can get your hands dirty after all. Yeah, I'm slick like that. And it shows, like, the tab for the coffee. When they were in the coffee shop, before they continue fighting, he has it. And he goes, "Get me back later for the coffee," as Oki slumps to the ground. He slumps to the ground, and then Oki all of a sudden gets grabbed by behind by Oki. He gets grabbed behind by Oki. He can still move with a wound like that? And then Oki takes the tab from him. I ain't letting my subordinate pay. But you can see Oki's eyes, and his eyes have lost color, like they've hazed over. And then Oki falls forward. Oki's dead. Oki's dead. The leader of the order has died. And he just falls forward, and a big old pool of blood starts to come out of him. And Nagumo can only stand there as he ends the chapter going, "Get some rest, Mr. Oki." Oki's dead. Oki is dead. This is the second order member to die. First, it was Takamura. And now it's the literal leader of the order after fighting Nagumo. And now, one thing I need to say about Nagumo, even after getting sliced across the chest, he's still able to stand just fine. But Oki, after getting punched in the throat and basically getting stabbed through the back, that's the thing that did him in. And judging from the position of where the hole is on his back, it looks like that tore either some organs or it just went straight through his spine. Was not expecting Oki to be put out of commission before any of the other characters aside from Uzuki. I was not expecting that either. But here's the thing. The moment they went into the casino, I felt Nagumo's got this. I don't think I said it at any time, but in my heart of hearts, when I looked at this chapter last week, and I saw they went into the casino, I said, this is where Nagumo is about to pop off. I said to myself, internally, this is where Nagumo is about to pop off. I can't remember if I said anything like that during the reaction, but I felt like this was going to be Nagumo's moment to really shine. So even after having all of his weapons basically destroyed, one after the other because of Oki's basically drill spear move, Nagumo basically had one last trick up his sleeve, and it was literally up his sleeve. It was his arm. He basically feinted Oki, jabbed him in the throat, and that punch was enough to send him flying backwards straight into the sword sticking through the wall. And that was what does Oki in. And he still gets the last laugh by saying, like, yeah, I'm not going to have my own subordinate pay. But then he immediately dies afterwards. Because he basically bled out. Even after having his organs basically messed up, he basically walks off the sword. Because you really should not try to force yourself to move off of an object that's impaled on you because you could cause way more damage to yourself. He was willing to do that to have the final say and saying, like, I'm not having my subordinate pay for my coffee. Even after all that time ago, how many chapters has it been since we seen them have coffee before they continued fighting? That was a ways off. And he dies saying, like, I'm not letting my subordinate pay. And then dies. So, yeah. To be fair, the casino is practically Nagumo's domain. Exactly. You want to know how it's his domain? Because it's all a matter of chance when it's up against his opponent. Remember and we had this discussion in the last stream when we were talking about, I did have this discussion about, like, oh, something crazy is about to happen at the casino, because we talked about Minimalist in the last session we had, Halster. We just talked about Minimalist back then. Literally last week. So I knew this was going to happen. The moment Nagumo wound up inside of the casino, it was his. This fight was his. But you know what this means. The top dog of the order has been brought down. Oki is dead. The only person left that is on Uzuki's side is Tanabata, the weird woman with the baby and the butcher knife, and the Saionji twins. Those are the only people aside from Uzuki left. Oh wait, and Gozu. 4 people. One is being handled by Shin, Tanabata. One is being handled by Osaragi and Shishiba. Gozu. One is just out there somewhere. The weird lady with the butcher knife and baby. And the Saionji twins are being dealt with by Mafuyu and Natsuki. We don't have anybody left. Even so, with an injury like that, he managed to get up and get to Nagumo without him even realizing. The only reason why Nagumo realized was because Oki put his hand on his shoulder. Yeah, but the fact that Oki put his hand on his shoulder and not try to retaliate shows that he already knew he was on his way out. He already knew that he was not leaving this casino alive. So rather than try to bring Nagumo down, he was all like, well played. You get this win. And then proceeds to die after saying like, yeah, I'm not letting you pay. But he immediately he immediately dies after saying the sentence because his sentence trails off. It has like 3 periods in there. His sentence literally trails off and he dies immediately. So Nagumo literally won as soon as he landed that punch, the fight was already over. Oki knew it, still wanted to have the final say. So we only have 4 people left before we only have 4 people. 4 obstacles left before Uzuki is the final one to deal with. And when that is over, I don't think there's anything left to cover for Sakamoto except bring the story to a close. Oki's down. And it was someone who was so vehement on following X. I like Oki. He's not a good person and a psychopath, but he had his interesting quirks. Yeah, he had his principles that he stood upon. I'm siding with this person that was killing our own because I want us to still be assassins. I want us to still kill people. And he's giving us a chaotic world where we can continue to do that. So I'm siding with him. And even standing on business, standing on his own principles, he still gets beaten and just takes it like a man. He doesn't scream Nagumo's name. He doesn't curse him. He doesn't reprimand him. He still tries to be the good boss at the end, saying like, I'm not letting my subordinate pay for me. And then just dies. So even though the people he was following, the person he was following may not have been, is not the person that one should be following even for an assassin, still behaved like a boss in the end. Like the way a boss should be for every job. Even if things don't pan out between your employees, you're still willing to be cordial with them. You don't end on bad notes or anything like that. I wish more bosses were like Oki in the end. Not during, wishing to kill other people. Let's continue to do this business because it allows us to kill more people. Yeah, you don't need bosses like that. You need to get out of that business. But I mean a boss even to the end, even when they get bested, they're still able to have a good boss mentality at the end. So get you a boss like that. If you're working a job, look for bosses that are willing to go that extra mile for you. Because not a lot of bosses like to be that way. Because, they got better things to do than worry about the little man, apparently. But I like this chapter because it shows that, like Oki said, apparently ever since Sakamoto left the JAA, Nagumo has not been fighting seriously. And you can kind of see it in the way he fights people. It's just that he does it with a smile on his face. He does not take the fight seriously at all. And Oki knows it and used it against him, basically destroying a whole bunch of his weapons in the process. But it's when Sakamoto says, like, this is all you can do? Huh. And then he's just flipping through. In his mind, Sakamoto's flipping through a newspaper. Is all like, this is all you can do? Huh. And then Nagumo's all like, oh, okay. And then delivers the coup de grace. Even a good boss to someone who is technically not even one of his employees anymore. Yeah, because Nagumo is no longer considered part of the order, and he still refers to Nagumo as his subordinate, despite the fact the JAA put a bounty on him and wanted to kill him. He still says, "You're still my subordinate, and I'm not having you pay for my coffee." So even in the end, he still wound up being a good boss, even if it was brief. And Nagumo understands this because he says, "Get some rest, Mr. Oki." He doesn't reprimand him. He doesn't even remain silent. He just passes on some good final words towards Oki in the end. So I like this chapter. I do. But, like I said, we only got 4 more individuals outside of Uzuki that we need to deal with. So I hope we cut to Osaragi and Shishiba, because Gozu needs to go. This Joker been smiling, making fun of people, deriding them, and electrifying them. Says like, you guys aren't getting away from here alive. So, and Osaragi owes Gozu. Osaragi owes Gozu for basically shocking her into unconsciousness. And then, to the one person she reveres the most, being Shishiba, he wound up getting shocked by Gozu as well. So, for Osaragi, some hands are about to be laid. But I really hope that's the fight we go to next. It doesn't show that we're going on break after this particular chapter, which means we can expect another chapter to show us who we are going to be focusing on next. Is it going to be Shin and Tanabata, or is it going to be Osaragi and Shishiba versus Gozu? We still don't have any idea where the weird lady with the baby is. And it's just so odd to me that she's just disappeared from the face of the manga ever since she only showed up like one time, and we have not seen her since. So I'm kind of concerned as to where she is right now. But yeah, not going on break, so I can't wait to see what happens in the next chapter. Because I feel like these chapters we're starting to get towards the chapters that are winding down the series. That's how I feel. All of these fights are starting to get wrapped up. We are getting closer and closer to the end of Sakamoto Days. And I said it before, I feel like the series may end in March. I feel like it may end in March. And since there's only so many days of February left, maybe like late March, at the very latest, maybe early April. At the very latest, early April. But I feel like March is where things are going to start really, really winding down. I'm not surprised with what happened to Rion and then Sakamoto leaving and not really having any other proper friends in the JAA. Probably took to not taking things seriously and being a jokester to help cope, because the only time that mask really slips is when Uzuki is involved in some way, shape, or form. You are right. Some of the most important people in his life left him. One left by dying. The other one left because he was done with the business and wanted to live with his wife. And wanted to live a life of peace with his wife. Not live with his wife, but live a life with Aoi. So he didn't have anyone to spar with. He didn't have anyone to joke with. So I can imagine that mask of being, jovial is just to cope with the fact that some of the most important people in his life weren't there anymore. So you are right. I do believe that is the case. I agree with you there. But we're going to have to see how things progress after this, because Nagumo no longer has any opponents to face. He literally faced the leader of the order and won. I think this series ends late April or early May, especially if these fights follow this one are having 2 chapters each. I may have to agree with you as well. April felt very generous. I would not be surprised if it goes past April and ends in May. But we have to see how the pacing is in March, though. And mind you, we still have to go through the last 2 days of February. We may be going on break out of February. That's my assumption. I feel like we could be going on break coming out of February. So the last week of February, we might not get a chapter. I could be wrong, but if I'm not, you heard it here first. I feel like the last week of February may be the break week before we get into March. That's how I feel. So we may get one more chapter through this month for both One Piece and Sakamoto Days. And then we'll go into March with a new chapter. But we'll see. We'll see. Overall, I really did like this chapter. But this also means that we have one less loose end to tie up before the end. So we'll see how the pacing goes with the next chapter and see where that leads us. But that's all I got for you guys. Time for me to chillax just a little bit, though I still have some very important things to do this week and set up for. I can't wait to see what these next chapters have for us next week. To everyone who stopped by, whether you're here live or you're watching later on, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Even check out my Patreon, because there's loads of free stuff for you over there. Because I'm always looking forward to entertaining you. And because I know you're coming back anyway. Have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later, peoples!